This is Wavecast Radio. If anyone is still tuning through the static tonight, I don't know how long this transmitter has left, or if the last strands of electricity crawling through this building will die before my next breath. When the nuclear EMP hit, everything flickered. Lights, clocks, heartbeat, like the world itself blinked and forgot how to open its eyes again. I can't even tell you the time anymore. All I know is this. 1 hour ago, life was normal. 1 hour ago, the world still had cities. 1 hour ago, we weren't living inside the beginning of a nuclear war. It started with the sirens. Not the ones we grew numb to during drills, not the polite tones that test the system once a month. These sirens were different, deeper, metallic, shaking the air like they carried fear inside their own wiring. They didn't sound like warnings, they sounded like confessions. And then every frequency, every channel, every voice across the country, overlapping, panicked, read the same message. Strategic nuclear impacts detected. This is not a drill. Seek shelter immediately. That sentence tore civilization in half. People looked out their windows thinking it was a mistake, a malfunction, another government panic that would end up as a footnote in the news cycle. But then the sky changed. A bright wound split open on the horizon, wide and blinding. At first it looked like a sunrise in the wrong direction, until the glow became too large, too violent, too hungry. A nuclear detonation doesn't rise like the sun. It claws upward, devouring everything beneath it. And then, silence. The unnatural silence that comes before reality explodes. The shockwave struck next. Even from this distance, it hit the station like a giant hand, shoving the world sideways. Equipment crashed, the walls shuddered, the whole room vibrated with the deep, sickening resonance you feel when the earth is in pain. I should have gone underground, I should have looked for shelter. But instead my hands reached for this microphone like they belonged to someone else. Maybe it's fear, maybe it's duty, or maybe speaking into this dark is the only way I can keep my mind from collapsing under the weight of what nuclear fire has done to this planet. Outside the reinforced window, the city was unraveling. Cars crashed into each other in a wave of blind panic. Parents grabbed their children and ran without direction, without thought, just pure instinct. Some people froze completely, staring at the growing bloom of radioactive light carving itself into the sky. I saw birds fall from the air in mid-flight. I saw a man drop to his knees and pray until the shockwave threw him to the ground. The blast wasn't even close to us. God help the ones who were closer. But it was enough. Enough to blind anyone who looked too long. Enough to peel the shadows off buildings. Enough to tear 1 million lives apart in a single instant. Inside the station, half the equipment died. The EMP fried circuits like they were paper. Backup power kicked in with a struggling whine, like it hated me for forcing it to keep breathing. The world map on the monitor turned red in cascading waves. Signal loss, total blackout, entire nations disappearing from communication in seconds. The capitals of multiple countries went offline simultaneously. Nuclear command centers vanished. Entire regions went dark. Millions must already be gone. I don't know if civilization can come back from this. Nuclear war doesn't just destroy cities, it destroys meaning. It destroys the idea of tomorrow. And outside this window, I can see the heavy, rust-colored sky forming from ash and fallout, drifting across the dying wind. People are still running, but every direction is the wrong one. Radiation doesn't care where you go. Some collapsed in the streets, some screamed and kept screaming. Some looked up at the sky with hollow eyes, unable to understand how quickly everything they knew, governments, power grids, homes, families, was erased. This wasn't political, this wasn't strategic, this wasn't anything human anymore. It was annihilation. It was the world tearing itself open with nuclear fire. If you're hearing this, if your radio survived the EMP, listen carefully. Stay indoors, stay underground if you can, seal off vents, keep water stored, do not look at the horizon no matter what you think you see. And if you've survived the initial blast radius, don't celebrate. The fallout will come, the fires will spread, the silence you hear outside isn't peace. It's the death of everything we thought was permanent. I don't know what comes next. But as long as this transmitter holds, as long as radiation hasn't eaten through these walls, as long as my lungs keep working, I'll stay here. I'll keep talking. I'll keep this fragile thread of connection alive. Today wasn't the beginning of a crisis. Today was the collapse of the world we knew. The hour the sirens broke the world. The hour nuclear fire rewrote the map of humanity. And I'm still here, broadcasting into the dark, still broadcasting, still breathing through the cracks of a world that barely exists anymore. If you're tuning in, if you're hearing this through a battery radio, if the signal isn't drowned in fallout static, then you need to understand what has happened, not to frighten you. Fear already owns the world tonight, but so you know what's gone, what's collapsing, what's not coming back. Nations didn't fall slowly today. They didn't crumble like old buildings. They were erased, wiped clean, turned into shapes of glowing absence where entire populations once lived. The map we all grew up with is gone. It burned in real time. The first confirmed strike hit the eastern seaboard of the United States. The flash came before the warning. New York never had a chance. The satellite feed went white, then black, then nothing. Washington, D.C. was next. No images, only a shockwave signature, and then silence. The entire northeastern grid collapsed in minutes. The Pentagon's final message was one fragmented sentence before the line went dead. By the time anyone processed what had happened, Chicago had vanished under a second strike. The U.S. communications network fractured like glass. Half the country's airspace lit up with emergency signals until the EMP wiped them out. Reports said Los Angeles was hit last, but no one knows. No images survived. Just coordinates, impact markers, and a spreading darkness where millions lived. Russia didn't remain a spectator. Their retaliation came like a chain of detonations across the globe. European radar systems caught the launches but lost track before they could broadcast warnings. Moscow itself, no one knows if it was destroyed or if they evacuated leadership into bunkers beneath the Ural Mountains. But St. Petersburg's skyline evaporated in a single bloom of light, captured by one trembling drone before it fell offline. Entire Russian military bases blinked off as though a hand swept them from the earth. No confirmation of survivors, no voices from the government. A nuclear superpower vanished behind a curtain of radioactive clouds. China followed. Retaliation, defense, chaos. No one can interpret motives anymore. Beijing's lights went dark after a triple strike pattern. Shanghai turned into a pillar of heat that shattered windows thousands of miles away. The Chinese coastline, home to hundreds of millions, became a scar of glowing plasma spreading across the sea. 90% of their national grid went offline. One of their final broadcasts was a young woman reading evacuation orders, her voice steady until the transmission cut mid-word. No human voice has come from China since. Europe didn't survive the crossfire. Paris suffered a direct strike. What remains is a crater wider than its city limits. Berlin was hit moments later, then London. The United Kingdom attempted one last emergency broadcast on a backup facility in Scotland. but it turned into static before the host could finish her first sentence. Italy, Spain, Poland, most of them were destroyed by secondary strikes or fallout. Entire governments disappeared in minutes. Borders evaporated, capitals swallowed by fire. Europe, the continent that held centuries of culture, history, life, gone in less than an hour. India. The moment the conflict between major powers escalated, India became an unavoidable target. Delhi received the first blast, bright enough to turn the sky into a pillar of flame, visible from neighbouring countries. Mumbai followed, then Bangalore. Over 1 billion people trapped in a shrinking timeline. We won't know the full scale for days, if days still exist in the same way, but satellite imagery before the EMP shutdown showed 3/4 of the country's landmass burning. No official statements, no emergency channels, just static. Pakistan and Iran were hit almost simultaneously. Strategic launches intended to neutralize military bases, but they wiped out cities in seconds. Lahore's signature disappeared. Tehran's skyline turned to fire. People didn't run, they were overtaken before they could step outside. Entire nations silenced like someone pressed a single switch. Japan tried to evacuate. They broadcast warnings, they mobilized emergency teams, they attempted to shelter entire prefectures underground. But it wasn't enough. Tokyo glowed brighter than day for a full minute before fading into darkness. Osaka, Sapporo, Nagoya, all gone. Islands of ash drifting in the Pacific. South Korea lasted minutes longer. Their final message was a single sentence: "To whoever survives, remember us." Then Seoul was struck, and the peninsula turned pitch black on the satellite grid. The Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Israel, the UAE, targets locked in a chain reaction of military logic that didn't care who lived there, didn't care if anyone could escape. Tel Aviv vaporized, Riyadh disappeared beneath a dust cloud spreading like a second sandstorm across deserts already older than civilization. Kuwait, Doha, Damascus. Names that were once headlines are now pieces of glowing desert glass. Africa wasn't spared either. Strategic strikes hit Egypt, Algeria, and South Africa. Cape Town vanished beneath a blinding disk of heat. Cairo became a wound in the earth, visible from orbit. Entire regions were plunged into darkness as communication grids collapsed. Australia hit twice, Sydney and Melbourne. Their final emergency broadcast was a panicked message insisting evacuation to the inner territories, but the shockwaves reached too far. The entire eastern coast is unrecognizable from the last satellite snapshot we received. South America's fate came slower but not merciful. Brazil was hit. Sao Paulo and Rio both went silent within the hour. Argentina received impact markers around Buenos Aires. Chile tried to warn its neighbors but lost power before finishing the transmission. The fallout cloud drifting across the Pacific is expected to sweep half the continent. Canada's cities burned next. Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, the cold country, the quiet country, erased in a storm of fire. The world is gone, the world is burning, the world is collapsing in on itself. And if you're hearing this, you're listening to the voice of a civilization that no longer exists on any map. I don't know who started it, I don't know who ended it, I don't know if anyone won or if everyone lost, but I know this: humanity destroyed itself faster than anyone believed possible. Countries didn't fall today, they disappeared. They were unmade, they were turned into silence. I don't know how much time has passed since the first flashes. The clocks here are dead, the sky outside is a bruised mix of ash and light, and the air feels heavier every minute. I keep speaking because silence feels like another kind of death, a slower one, a deeper one. The kind that creeps up behind you and wraps its fingers around your throat when you stop paying attention. The world map on the last working monitor is a graveyard of red markers. I watch them flicker one by one like dying stars. Cities we thought would stand forever, places we believed were invincible, falling into nothingness. The shapes of nations are melting away. Borders mean nothing. Flag mean nothing. It's just impact zones now. Radiation clouds, blackout regions, empty coordinates where millions lived only hours ago. I can't stop thinking about all the people who never knew what hit them. Someone was probably making breakfast. Someone was rushing for school. Someone was kissing their child goodbye at the door, thinking it was just another morning. Someone was sending a text, arguing, laughing, promising something for later. And then later never came. Their world ended in a flash, brighter than the sun. It makes my chest hurt to even think it, like the grief is sitting somewhere deep behind my ribs, trying to claw its way out. I keep wondering what the last moments were like in those cities. Did people understand? Did they have seconds of clarity? Or was it just light and heat and then nothing? What does it feel like when an entire city vanishes at once? Does the soul feel it? Does the earth feel it? Because I do. Even from inside these walls, even miles away, I feel it like a pressure in the back of my skull. Like the world is screaming through the soil. The horizon is changing color again. It's not night, but it's not day either. It's something in between, something sick, something that doesn't belong to any normal human sky. The light keeps shifting like it's alive, pulsing between orange and black like a heartbeat slowing down. I open the small window sometimes, just a crack, just enough to see. The city outside is barely recognizable. Buildings are standing but hollow, windows blown out, rooftops cracked, streets filled with abandoned cars pointed in every direction, like people tried to escape all at once and didn't know where to go. The air smells wrong, metallic, burnt, empty. I saw someone out there a few minutes ago. A man walking slowly down the middle of the road, shirt torn, face covered in dust. He wasn't running, he wasn't screaming, he wasn't searching for anyone. He was just walking like his mind had detached from his body, like he didn't know what movement meant anymore. He looked up at the sky once, but not in fear, more like confusion. Then he kept walking until he disappeared behind a burned-out truck. I don't know where he went. I don't know if he knew either. There must be others. People trapped in basements, shelters, underground parking lots, subway tunnels. People breathing in the dark, hoping the next explosion doesn't hit them. People listening for anything human, anything familiar, anything that says they aren't alone. And maybe someone out there is hearing this voice right now, holding on to it the way I'm holding on to the microphone. Because when everything else is gone, a voice, just a human voice, feels like a lifeline. Every few minutes the ground shivers. Aftershocks or secondary strikes, I can't tell anymore. The building trembles like it's remembering something it wishes it could forget. Dust falls from the ceiling in thin clouds, settling on the equipment, on my hands, on the floor. I don't brush it off. It feels pointless. There's dust everywhere now, drifting through the air, like the world is turning itself into ash grain by grain. I keep thinking this wasn't supposed to happen in our lifetime. We were supposed to be smarter, more connected, more aware. We had warnings, we had history, we had treaties and negotiations and endless speeches about peace, but none of it mattered when the wrong buttons were pushed. And now, everything we built, everything we thought made us advanced or civilized, is collapsing faster than we can understand it. Somewhere out there, someone must be crying right now. Someone must be alone in a ruined apartment, sitting in the dark, holding on to a picture or a letter or a memory as the world outside burns. Someone must be praying, even if they never prayed before. Someone must be calling a name that will never answer again. Someone must be trying to reach a phone that will never ring. There's a pain spreading across the globe that no measurement can capture, no scientist can explain, no map can chart. A pain woven into the air. I keep talking because every word feels like it's holding the walls up for another minute. I don't want the silence to find me. I don't want to hear the world outside without this layer of sound between us. I don't want to think about the faces I'll never see again, the voices I'll never hear, the places that no longer exist. The sky flickers again, brighter this time. The ash cloud is drifting lower. The city is fading. The world is fading. But I'm still here. For now. For however long this transmission holds. For however long my voice can keep steady. If you're out there, don't give up. Not yet, not now. Even if the cities are gone, even if the world is burning, even if everything familiar has been erased, you're still breathing, you're still alive. And that means something, even if I don't know what anymore. The world may have ended today, but you haven't. Not yet. I keep staring at the numbers on the screen, what's left of them. They're not normal numbers anymore, they're estimates, rough shapes, sickening projections of how many people were alive this morning versus how many are left now. And every time the data refreshes, the count drops so fast it doesn't look real. It looks like a glitch. It looks like a mistake. But it's not. It's death, rolling across continents faster than anyone could run, faster than anyone could scream, faster than any government could react. Millions were gone in the first hour, then tens of millions, then entire populations were wiped out before they could even understand what was happening. Civilization didn't fall, it was ripped apart. One moment the world was holding itself together with all its fragile hopes and systems and routines, and the next it was bleeding out on every border, every city, every coast. The world we knew, the world with morning traffic and crowded malls and noisy airports and schools filled with children's voices, died before anyone could say goodbye. When the first major cities vanished, I hoped, stupidly, that maybe the rural areas would survive, that maybe small towns or villages would stay untouched. But the fallout clouds moved too fast. They rolled over everything like a living thing, swallowing roads, forests, fields, mountains. They drifted across oceans and came down on places that had never been on any target list. People miles away from any military base collapsed in their homes, clutching their throats, their lungs filling with air that wasn't air anymore. Millions suffocated in minutes. Millions more burned where they stood. There's no word for the scale of it. No language built by humans can explain what happens when half a species dies before sunset. I listened to the emergency frequencies until they all went silent. At first it was chaos, voices screaming, pleading, trying to organize evacuations, trying to reach anyone. Then the screams got softer, then fewer, then replaced by static. One by one, every channel fell quiet. You could hear the grief in the last transmissions, the raw terror of people who knew they were describing their final moments. Some begged for help, some cursed the governments, some apologized to children who would never grow up. One man just whispered a name over and over until the signal faded. That one broke me in a way nothing else did. The simplicity of it, the humanity of trying to call someone who would never answer again. Civilization isn't collapsing, it has collapsed. There's no order out there, no leadership, no rescue, no military, no relief teams, no governments sending instructions. The world isn't waiting to rebuild. There's nothing left to rebuild from. The major power grids are dust, communications are shattered, satellites are blind or offline, drifting in orbit like dead metal shells. The internet is a graveyard of frozen pages and broken links. Hospitals are piles of rubble or dark, silent buildings filled with people who didn't make it out. Highways are choked with abandoned cars, every one of them a story that ended too fast. Civilization is gone because the people who kept it alive are gone. The cities, God, the cities are unrecognizable. Some look like they melted, like the buildings sagged and collapsed in on themselves, like wax sculptures thrown into fire. Others are nothing but skeletal remains, blackened frameworks sticking up from the ground like bones. Some are just dust, literal dust, blown away by winds carrying radiation and ash. There are no landmarks anymore, no skylines, no silhouettes of towers cutting into the clouds. Everything familiar is either burning or already gone. I saw an image, one of the last satellites captured before they failed. It was on the nighttime side of the Earth. Except it wasn't night. There were no lights, no cities glowing, no clusters of brightness showing where life gathered. Just darkness. A cold, empty sphere drifting through space. Humanity used to be visible from the stars. Now we're not. The deaths, they're beyond counting, beyond numbers, beyond understanding. We never imagined the world could change this fast, that entire nations could vanish between breaths, that millions could die without warning, without explanation, without dignity. We always thought we had time to fix things, time to negotiate, time to calm tensions, time to pull back from the edge. We thought the end of the world would be some slow slide, some gradual process we'd see coming. But it wasn't. It was instant, violent, merciless. Somewhere out there, in the rubble, in the ashes, people are still alive, scared, injured, alone, crying with no one to answer, trying to pull loved ones from debris, trying to find water, trying to breathe air that betrays them, trying to understand why the world they knew ended without a warning they could act on. Some might survive the night, some might not, but the truth is brutal. Humanity has been cut down to a fraction of what it was this morning, and I don't know why I'm still talking. Maybe because if I stop, the silence will swallow me too. Maybe because this voice, this signal, is the only thread still connecting what's left of humanity. Maybe because somewhere out there, someone needs to hear that they're not the only one left inside a dead world. My hands won't stop shaking. My throat keeps tightening. I want to cry, but I feel like my tears froze somewhere inside me. Like the grief is too large to escape, too huge to express. How do you mourn millions at once? How do you grieve for countries, cultures, civilizations? How do you say goodbye to an entire world? The truth is, you don't. You just speak. You keep speaking, because silence feels like surrender, and surrender feels like the last thing I can allow myself to do. If anyone is still alive, hold on, even if everything else is gone, even if you have nothing left, even if the world is falling apart in every direction, hold on, because breath means life, and life means hope, even if hope feels impossible right now. The sky hasn't gone dark since the first explosions. It refuses to. It just hangs there, glowing like a wound, stretching across the horizon. Even now, hours later, or maybe minutes, I can't tell anymore, the light keeps bleeding through the clouds, this sick, pulsing orange that paints everything with the color of endings. When I look out the window, it doesn't feel like I'm looking at the world anymore. It feels like I'm staring into something broken, something ruptured, something that shouldn't exist. The fires won't die. Entire regions are burning at once. Fires so massive they create their own storms. You can see the winds twisting the smoke into monstrous shapes, pillars rising higher than any mountain. The earth trembles every few minutes, not explosions now, but the collapse of structures that once defined skylines. skyscrapers falling like old trees, bridges folding in on themselves, highways cracking under heat so intense the concrete curls upward like paper. Civilization is disintegrating piece by piece right outside my window. The death toll can't even be estimated anymore. Everything that was once recorded, calculated, tracked, all gone. The systems that counted are ash. But the truth is clear in every direction. We're living through an extinction-level event. Millions were gone in minutes, tens of millions by the first hour. Now, it's in the hundreds of millions, maybe billions. People didn't just die, they were erased, vaporized, suffocated, crushed, burned, lost in collapsing cities, poisoned by fallout clouds, drifting like invisible ghosts across oceans and mountains and deserts. Every breath feels like a reminder that someone else lost theirs. The weight of that thought is unbearable. I keep touching my face to make sure I'm still here, still breathing, still something, not just another number vanishing off a broken screen. I heard something outside earlier, a scream, faint, carried on the wind, cut short. I don't know who it belonged to. I don't know if they were alone. I don't know if they survived whatever found them. The city is full of voices that rise and fall like dying embers. Some are calling for help. Some are crying for people who will never answer. Some are praying loud enough to echo through the empty streets. Others just sit against walls, staring at the glowing sky with eyes that look hollow and lost. People don't know whether to hide, to run, to give up. Instinct isn't enough when the world ends this fast. The collapse isn't just physical, it's mental, emotional, spiritual. The human mind wasn't built to process something like this. We were designed to fear storms, predators, hunger, not the sudden disappearance of everything that made us feel safe. People always pictured the end of the world as dramatic, heroic, cinematic. But the truth is quiet in the worst way. It's quiet after the screams. It's quiet when the fires are too loud to hear your own thoughts. It's the quiet of realizing no one is coming to save you. Somewhere across what used to be the globe, the last governments tried to stay connected. For a few minutes, maybe less, there were attempts to communicate. Broken voices reading contingency plans, protocols, emergency codes. But their signals died. Almost instantly, leaders gone, capitals gone, chains of command shattered. When the world lost its cities, it lost its structure. Without structure, there is only survival, and survival is a thin, fragile thing when the sky rains poison and the ground shakes like it's trying to throw you off. I keep thinking about the people who didn't make it indoors in time, the ones caught in the open when the shockwaves hit, the ones in cars stuck in traffic, watching the glow rise over the horizon, the ones at windows, curious for one fatal second, the ones who never knew the blast was coming. Their stories ended silently, swallowed by light, brighter than anything a human eye should ever see. Some didn't even have time to understand. Their last moments were confusion, breath, heartbeat, and then gone. And now, what remains? Ruin, ash. Silence thick enough to suffocate. Streets filled with the debris of lives that will never continue, shoes scattered on sidewalks, toys lying next to overturned strollers, phones frozen on half-written messages. Cars are still running with no one inside. Every object outside is a monument now, a reminder that someone lived, someone loved, someone laughed in this world before it was torn apart. The heat is rising again. I can feel it seeping through the walls. Slow and relentless, the air tastes metallic, dusty, like the world outside is dissolving into particles small enough to breathe. I don't know how long it's safe to stay here. I don't know how long any of us have. but I can't stop talking. The silence behind me feels like it's waiting, like if I pause for too long it will swallow me whole. Civilization didn't crumble, it didn't collapse. It fell like a building with its foundation ripped out in an instant. All our knowledge, our structures, our systems, our achievements, none of it mattered today. Not when the fire came, not when the ash spread, not when the sky refused to dim. And yet, even now, with the world ending in real time, I can't help but think of the people still alive out there. The ones clutching radios with shaking hands, listening to this voice as if it can hold them together. Maybe someone is huddled in a basement with their family, listening to the last human words they'll hear tonight. Maybe someone is injured, bleeding, lying under debris, waiting for a sign that they're not dying alone. Maybe someone is wandering the streets, numb and broken, and hearing these words is like a path through madness. If that's you, hear me. Breathe. Even if it hurts, even if the air tastes like dust, even if you're surrounded by destruction, keep breathing. You are still alive, and that matters more than anything left on this dying earth. The sky is burning, the world is breaking, but you're still here, and as long as you are, something human remains. The air feels heavier now. Every breath tastes like the remnants of something burning far beyond the horizon. I keep breathing. Anyway, slow and shallow because I don't know how long the filters will last. The walls tremble again. Far off impacts or collapsing structures, I can't tell the difference anymore. Everything sounds the same when the world is ending. The death toll. I don't even know if it can be called a number anymore. It's too big. Too monstrous, too impossible to absorb. Billions lived on this planet when the sun rose. Billions with routines, worries, dreams, futures. Now most of them are gone. They died without ceremony, without warning, without choice. They died in their homes, on their roads, in their offices, in their schools. They died in the middle of everyday life. The world didn't slow down for them, it shredded itself around them. Civilization didn't just fall, it suffocated, it collapsed under its own silence. All the things we depended on, the networks, the governments, the institutions, vanished faster than they were built. The fall wasn't cinematic, it wasn't slow motion, it wasn't a tragic descent, it was instant, brutal. A single strike turned governments into dust. Another erased cities that held millions. Another silenced the planet's largest networks. By the time people realized what was happening, it was already over for most of them. Somewhere out there, bodies lie in the street, untouched. Not out of disrespect, but because there's no one left to move them. There's no one left to mourn them. Cars sit still with doors left open, their occupants frozen in time, forever mid-escape. In the ruins of once crowded stations, suitcases spill open under collapsed ceilings, their owners nowhere to be found. Parks that were filled with laughter this morning are now covered in a thin layer of ash that hides everything beneath it. Entire stadiums, airports, hospitals, places built to hold thousands are now silent tombs. I can't shake the image of the cities, the ones captured in the last surviving feeds before the satellites went blind. Vast landscapes of ruin stretching out to the horizon, towers bent and melted, streets cracked open like the earth itself was rejecting everything built on it. Fire crawling along the ground in slow waves, devouring what little remains. No movement. No lights. No survivors standing upright. Just death. Layered on death. Layered on the ghost of what humanity thought it would become. People always imagined the apocalypse as something with survivors banding together, fighting back, rebuilding. But There's no one left to band together, no radio chatter from emergency teams, no evacuation vans, no military planes cutting through the smoke, no sirens, just silence. A silence so deep it presses into your chest like a weight, reminding you with every heartbeat that you are nearly alone on a planet that used to be crowded beyond measure. If you're out there listening, if the signal is reaching you through all this chaos, understand that you are one of the last threads of humanity, not in some heroic, chosen one way, not as some narrative of hope, but simply because statistically, mathematically, brutally, you survived something that erased nearly everyone else. That survival isn't victory, it's a burden, a heavy one that settles into your bones and refuses to leave. I keep thinking about those who didn't have time to register fear, the ones caught in the first blinding lights. What did they feel? Heat? Confusion? Nothing at all? Did they see the world for what it was in their last millisecond? Or did they simply blink out of existence, unaware that the planet was tearing open around them? There's something terrifying about deaths so fast they don't leave echoes. Those people didn't get to scream, they didn't get to think, they didn't get to fight. They just disappeared. The collapse of order happened just as fast. Small pockets tried to hold on, local communities, emergency responders, neighborhood shelters, but the fallout clouds moved like living shadows, covering everything they touched. Panic spread faster than the fire. People stampeded through streets choked with debris, searching for family members, calling out names swallowed by the smoke. Some tried to break into sealed buildings, believing there was safety inside, but the heat shattered the glass before they could. Others ran toward highways, only to find them clogged with abandoned cars stretching for miles. I saw the footage. One clip burned into my mind. A mother carrying her child, running through a street already cracking under pressure. Behind her, a wave of dust and ash surged like a beast. She screamed something, maybe a name, maybe a prayer, but the sound was drowned out before she reached the corner. The ash swallowed them whole. The camera capturing it cut out seconds later. And now, here we are. The last pieces of a civilization that spanned continents. A civilization that built skyscrapers tall enough to kiss clouds, machines complex enough to imitate thought, communities dense enough to fill every street with noise. A civilization that believed it was invincible. All of it is gone, reduced to bones and dust. I keep expecting to hear footsteps outside the door, the sound of someone calling for help, the noise of another survivor. But there is nothing, only distant collapses, only the hiss of burning metal, only the groaning of a city learning how to die. The loneliness feels like a physical thing pressing against my ribs. It's strange. How can a world once so full feel this empty? If you're listening, you're not alone. Not completely. Not yet. As long as my voice reaches you, as long as you can hear the tremble in it, the grief, the disbelief, the stubborn will to keep speaking, you and I are still connected. You and I are still proof that the world hasn't fully fallen silent. But God, it's so close. The world isn't burning everywhere anymore, but that doesn't mean it's safe. The fires that remain crawl across cities, forests, plains, rivers, unstoppable. Where once people lived, there are only shadows, blackened walls, twisted metal, and streets littered with the remnants of lives that ended in an instant. The silence now is almost heavier than the explosions. It's not just quiet. It's the absence of everything, the void where civilization used to hum. No voices, no engines, no machines, just dust drifting through the empty streets and the wind carrying ash over continents that no longer remember what humanity looked like. I can't see anyone, not a single human figure, and when I imagine them, I think of the millions lost, children who will never grow, families torn apart mid-step, couples separated by walls that no longer exist, millions suffocated, millions burned, millions crushed in the collapse of buildings that were supposed to protect them. Every window I look through frames death as though it were a painting, frozen, indifferent, eternal. The streets are scattered with abandoned cars, their doors flung open, engines still running, lights flickering weakly before fading. Clothing lies in piles like discarded memories. Toys, books, shoes, all the ordinary objects of everyday life, left behind, standing as monuments to the lives they carried. Somewhere in the distance I can hear what might be human voices if my mind isn't playing tricks, weak, coughing, broken by fear. There's no way to know if they're survivors, if they're calling for help, or if they're just hallucinations born from exhaustion. Everyone I imagine out there is alone, wandering through the ruin, trying to make sense of a world that no longer makes sense. People are scavenging, hiding, crying, praying, screaming, but all of it is swallowed instantly by the wind carrying dust and ash from cities that are now ghostlands. Even those who survived the initial strikes are changed. Some move mechanically, their faces blank, their eyes empty of comprehension, as though the mind itself has fractured under the weight of the apocalypse. Panic has become instinct, survival the only possible drive. No one is organizing, no one is leading. Every attempt to create order has collapsed under the scale of the catastrophe. Civilization as we knew it no longer exists, and no structure has the strength to rise from the rubble. There's no government, no army, no law enforcement. The rules that once defined life are gone. Even morality feels fragile in a world where the line between life and death is reduced to sheer chance. I keep walking through the ruined streets, if only in my mind, picturing the faces of those who fell first, the bodies that will never be recovered. Millions of people were reduced to ash or broken stone, or lost in the debris of cities that were once alive. And yet, the world continues to move. The wind carries the scent of burning and death across continents, and the clouds swirl in colors that have no name. The sky itself seems alive, pulsating, almost mocking the emptiness below. There's no night or day anymore, just a permanent haze, a sickening twilight, like the planet itself is mourning the species that once ruled it. Water is scarce, food is gone, communication is impossible. The survivors, if they can be called that, exist in pockets of desperate motion. Some are scavenging for supplies in collapsed buildings, others huddle in basements or underground shelters, too afraid to move, too afraid to look outside. There's no way to know if they are alone, if someone will find them, if hope exists at all. Time has lost meaning. Days, nights, minutes, they blur together under the constant weight of destruction. And yet, somewhere in the ruin, life persists. A faint cough, a trembling hand reaching through debris, a single pulse of warmth in a frozen world. If anything is left, it is fragile, it is quiet, it is human. The vast majority of the species is gone, millions more than anyone could have imagined. The infrastructure of civilization is irretrievably destroyed. Hospitals, schools, transportation, communication, Everything that defines humanity's order is rubble and ash. And still, small threads of life continue. Threads that might hold something resembling hope, or at least survival, in the cold shadow of a dying world. I can feel the weight of it, the emptiness, the silence, the absence of billions of lives. It presses against me in the quiet moments, making it hard to breathe. The thought of the world that existed this morning, now gone, is unbearable, yet speaking into the microphone, imagining that someone, somewhere, hears me, keeps the human spark alive. Tenuous as it is not hope, it is a memory. It is acknowledgement that once there was life, that once we were more than shadows in the dust. The streets stretch endlessly into the grey horizon. Entire neighborhoods turn to rubble, entire continents emptied of voices. Every sound is amplified, the whisper of wind through broken windows, the groan of a building settling into its own destruction, the faint echo of someone calling for someone who will never answer. The dead are everywhere, in every corner, under every stone, and the living move among them, shadows of themselves, navigating a world that no longer recognizes them. This is the reality of survival after the first wave, not the fire, not the light, not the explosions. That is over. What remains is emptiness, brokenness, grief, and the fragile heartbeat of humanity, scattered across a world that has already lost more than it can hold. Every second feels like 1,000 years, every breath feels like a defiance, and every step is a reminder that the world we built, the civilization we believed permanent, has vanished. If anyone hears this, keep moving, keep breathing, keep holding on to the faint thread of life that remains, because that thread may be all that is left of the world we once knew, and all that may guide humanity through what comes next. The maps are useless now. Lines that once defined countries, borders, cities, all meaningless. The satellites are dead, the grids are gone. The streets that were once familiar are unrecognizable, crumbling under heat, ash, and ruin. Mountains are scarred with fire. Rivers glow with reflected flame. Cities that should have been beacons of life are now nothing but twisted skeletons and ash. And every step you take could lead to safety or death. There's no way to tell. Every direction is uncertain. Every horizon holds danger. Civilization has vanished from the surface of the earth, leaving survivors wandering blind through the remnants. People are fractured. Every person left alive carries the weight of a world erased. Faces are pale, eyes hollow, voices trembling. Some stumble through streets without purpose, hoping to find a place untouched by fire or radiation. Others huddle in basements and ruins, unwilling to leave, even when there's no food, no water, no future. The panic doesn't burn out, it spreads. Fear becomes instinct, and those instincts aren't always enough to survive. Every building could collapse at any moment, every shadow could conceal death. Every step could be the last. Even the earth itself feels unstable, trembling beneath the weight of destruction. I think about the millions who were caught outside, people running for safety, children pulled from burning homes, cars packed with families escaping nothing only to be overtaken by shockwaves or fallout, streets filled with bodies left where they fell. Entire neighborhoods emptied, leaving silence thick enough to press against your chest. There's no rescue, there's no help. The systems that once protected people have been wiped out. Police, fire departments, hospitals, governments, all gone in minutes. Survival isn't heroic, it's accidental. The radiation spreads like a living thing. Winds carry it across continents, drifting into places untouched by the initial blasts. People who thought they were safe are now exposed. Breathing becomes a gamble. Every cough or wheeze could be the first sign of something that kills slowly and mercilessly. The sun is dimmed by ash. The sky is a sick, unchanging orange-brown haze. You can't navigate by it. You can't even tell the difference between day and night. Time has become meaningless, measured only in hunger, thirst, and the heat of radiation-laden air. I saw someone today, if you can call it seeing, a lone figure moving slowly across a broken street, dragging something behind them. I couldn't tell what it was, just a shadow among shadows. Their shoulders slumped, their face unreadable beneath soot and ash. They moved mechanically, neither running nor stopping, like a ghost navigating a world that had stopped making sense. Maybe that's all that's left of humanity now. Shadows, moving through emptiness, trying to survive long enough to see another sunrise that may never come. Communication is gone. Phones, internet, satellites, all destroyed. People don't know where to go, who to trust, or if anyone is left alive. Messages left on boards or taped to walls are often unanswered. Sometimes I imagine the notes people left before the end. We survived. Come find us, only to be swept away in wind or fire. Every attempt to reach another human being is a gamble. Every shout into a ruined city could be answered by wind or ash instead of a voice. Food is gone. Water is scarce. Even wells and reservoirs may be poisoned. There's no clean soil, no crops, no livestock. Nature is still here, yes, but it's twisted, burned, unstable. The rivers flow red, grey or black with ash. The forests are hollowed out, burned from the inside. The land itself is poisoned, and every attempt to harvest, to grow, to rebuild is a fight against a planet that has turned against its own inhabitants. The emotional toll is unbearable. Survivors carry memories of people who are gone, of cities that once existed, of families and friends vaporized in seconds. Grief is everywhere, a heavy, unshakable presence. People cry silently. Some scream into the wind, others sit, staring at ruins, unable to move. There's guilt for surviving, guilt for continuing when others didn't, guilt for even existing in a world that is unrecognizable. And yet, despite it all, the instinct to survive persists, a stubborn, terrible, beautiful thing. There's no hope as it used to exist, no promise of rescue, no government, no army, no humanitarian aid. Everything is gone, every system, every structure, every human-made order erased. And in that void, every action becomes survival. Every step, every breath, every decision carries weight. The living are ghosts in a dead world, stumbling through the remnants of human achievement, searching for something that might never exist again. And still, people move, somehow. Some manage to scavenge a meal. Some find shelter. Some find each other. Human contact, even fleeting, feels miraculous. Even a shared word of understanding or a glance of recognition holds power. The sheer act of noticing another human being in the ruins is a defiance of extinction itself. Every breath, every heartbeat, every movement is proof that humanity hasn't fully vanished, even if the world as it was is gone. The earth feels alive and hostile at the same time. The ground trembles, the wind carries ash, radiation, and whispers of what was. The sun filters through the haze in streaks of colour too bright and too sickly to call sunlight. Every horizon is a warning, every skyline is a skeleton, every street is a graveyard. And yet somewhere in the wreckage, survivors push forward because that is all they can do, that is all any human can do when the world has stopped making sense. Keep moving, keep breathing, keep existing, even as the planet itself seems to resist their survival. The world is broken beyond repair, and yet the humans who remain are still alive. That is all that matters. That is all there is. And that is terrifying, beautiful, and impossible all at once. It's not just the cities that are gone, it's the people, the faces, the laughter, the arguments, the chaos that defined life erased. Walk through any street, any broken avenue, and you see it, the emptiness. Abandoned homes, abandoned cars, abandoned lives. The silence presses into you, heavy, relentless, a reminder that the world we knew is gone. People don't just die in moments like this, they vanish, leaving only echoes. And those of us who survive, we're haunted. Every step forward carries the weight of billions who no longer exist. I can feel it in myself, and I can imagine it in anyone still out there. A creeping emptiness where your mind used to be. Memories of faces, voices, and streets swallowed by fire and ash. Every thought loops around what was, what is gone, and what might never be again. The mind starts playing tricks. You hear whispers in the wind, shadows move where no one is. You imagine footsteps behind you, or someone calling your name from the ruins, and then realize you're alone. Truly alone. Not just physically, but in a way that seeps into the bones. People who survive do so in fragments of sanity. A day lasts longer than a year, and the nights are filled with hallucinations. Faces appear on burned walls, voices echo from empty alleys. You question your own existence, you question reality itself. Because when billions have vanished in hours, when the world has lost all structure, what is left to anchor the mind? Civilization was the anchor. People were the anchor. Now the world is unmoored, adrift in chaos, and we drift with it. The few who find each other cling together like broken vessels, but even together it's fragile. Trust is rare. Paranoia grows. Hunger and fear make people sharp, desperate, and dangerous, even to their own kind. Everyone is suspect. Everyone is at risk. Everyone is haunted by what they have seen and what they have lost. Entire groups of survivors are tiny islands of humanity in a sea of devastation. And even those islands are eroding, one piece of sanity at a time. I can imagine what's happening in the places I can't see. Families huddled in ruined basements, holding each other in the dark. A father whispering to a child that it's going to be okay when he knows it isn't. A woman staring at a collapsed building, remembering the people trapped beneath it, the friends she loved who will never return. The panic of knowing the world as it was has vanished, replaced by something cold, grey, and unfeeling. The nights stretch on endlessly. Even the stars are hidden behind smoke and dust. Nothing feels safe. Nothing feels permanent. Nothing feels real. Some survivors keep moving simply to outrun the memories. They walk endlessly through streets that are no longer theirs, through towns that no longer exist, trying to find something, anything to cling to. Others stay, rooted by grief, unable to face the emptiness of the world outside. Both choices are punishment. Both are survival. Both are a reminder that life has become a cruel experiment in endurance, testing limits no one was prepared for. I've seen the breakdown of hope manifest in strange ways. People talking to objects, whispering apologies to walls, arguing with shadows. The mind seeks connection, and when humans are gone, the mind will invent it. It's heartbreaking, it's terrifying, it's all that remains of the social bonds that once defined us. And when even the hallucinations fade, when the mind finally understands the scope of the loss, the silence is unbearable. A single heartbeat becomes deafening. The absence of humanity is everywhere, and it presses in like the weight of a planet that doesn't care. There's no rebuilding yet, there may never be. The infrastructure is destroyed. The knowledge is scattered. The people who carried it are gone. The earth itself is hostile. Radiation lingers in the air. Dust carries poison. Water is tainted, and food is almost non-existent. The very act of living has become a challenge. Unlike anything in recorded history, every breath carries danger, every step could lead to death. Every human interaction is a test of sanity as much as survival. Civilization is no longer a structure, it is a memory, a ghost. And still, there are faint threads. Survivors reach out to each other across ruined streets, across broken fields. Some cling to old habits, lighting fires, building shelters, rationing supplies, but even those are fragile attempts to hold on to a world that has disappeared. Even simple human touch, a word spoken, a hand held, becomes a lifeline. Tiny acts of connection are what anchor the mind, what tether the soul to life when everything else has dissolved. I think about the people who didn't survive, not just the numbers, the faces, the voices, the dreams. Millions gone in flashes of heat and light, families evaporated, cities erased, cultures silenced. History itself is fractured, and I carry it inside me, as do those who remain. We are the living memory of a world that can no longer speak for itself. We are the last witnesses, and even that is a heavy burden. Every heartbeat reminds us of absence, every breath reminds us of loss. Every movement is an act of defiance against extinction. In the ruins, time has no meaning. Days, nights, weeks, they merge into one long stretch of ash, smoke, and silence. And yet, somehow, we continue. Somehow, human instinct persists, even in a world that seems determined to erase it. Even when every system, every city, every community is gone, even when the dead outnumber the living by billions, we continue. Because that is all life is now. Persistence. Tenacity. The refusal to disappear. Even when the world has stopped holding our hand, even when hope itself is gone. And so we walk. We hide. We scavenge. We whisper to each other. We remember, we survive. Not because the world is kind, not because civilization is waiting to be rebuilt, but because we are human, and humans endure, even when endurance seems impossible, even when the ghosts of billions who once walked this earth follow us with every step. Everything has changed. The world that once bustled with billions is now a shadow. Roads crumble beneath our feet. Rivers glow with poisoned reflection. Cities lie in ruin, skeletal and silent, monuments to what we once were. The air itself is a reminder of mortality, thick with ash, radiation, smoke, the lingering scent of fire. Every breath is a choice, a gamble, a rebellion against a planet that seems intent on reclaiming itself. Every heartbeat is defiance, every step proof that something human still exists. But how much longer can we endure? The people left are scattered, isolated, shadows moving through a landscape that no longer offers safety, families torn apart, friends lost in moments, communities erased by the merciless speed of destruction. The vast majority are gone, millions dead in the first hours, billions following in the unfolding days. What survives is raw, fragile, haunted. Survivors are ghosts, living in the aftermath, carrying memories of those who vanished, struggling to find meaning in a world that has forgotten itself. I walk through streets littered with what remains of human lives, shoes abandoned mid-run, children's toys covered in ash, crumpled letters still clinging to walls. Every object tells a story that no one will hear. Every ruin holds a life that ended too fast. There is no funeral, no ceremony, no memory preserved. The world itself has swallowed them, leaving only fragments for the living to stumble over. The scale of loss is beyond comprehension, and yet we continue. We continue simply because we are alive, and because to stop would be to accept extinction fully. Even now the mind struggles against emptiness. Solitude is suffocating. Hours stretch into endless echoes. Every sound, the wind through twisted steel, the groan of a burning building, the distant collapse of stone, is amplified, reminding us of absence. The human mind was never designed to process billions gone, cities erased, cultures silenced in a single day. Every memory becomes a ghost, every recollection a wound. Madness is a constant companion, and still instinct persists. Survival, however tenuous, is unyielding. Some survivors try to gather, small groups huddled together, sharing whispered strategies for finding water, food, and shelter. Others wander alone, driven by memory, by instinct, by the faint hope that someone else remains. Every human contact is precious, rare, fleeting. Every gesture, every word, a tether to what was, a reminder that humanity has not been extinguished entirely, and yet every encounter carries the shadow of fear. Who will betray? Who will fail to protect? Who will not survive the next day? The world itself feels alive and hostile at once. Fires smolder across continents, radiation lingers in clouds, winds carry ash and poison, rivers run dark with toxic reflections, and the ground trembles unpredictably. There is no safe place, no refuge, no sanctuary. Nature has reclaimed its dominance, indifferent to the struggles of the few humans left. Survival is not about hope, it is about endurance, about moving through spaces that were once home and now are tombs, about making decisions in a world without maps, without guidance, without rules. I think about the dead constantly, not just the ones I knew, but the billions I never knew. Faces, voices, names, stories, lost forever. It is a grief without bounds, a sorrow so vast it presses down on your chest with every step. The loss of life is unimaginable, and yet we who remain carry it inside us. It is memory, it is guilt, it is a burden heavier than any single human should bear, and somehow we endure simply because stopping would mean complete annihilation. In the silence, small sparks of humanity persist, a shared fire, a whispered word, a hand extended in help, a survivor offering another a morsel of food, tiny gestures that ripple through the vast emptiness, evidence that life persists, fragile as it may be. These moments are rare, fleeting, and powerful. They remind us that even when civilization is gone, even when the systems and structures that defined humanity have vanished, the essence of being human can survive in the smallest acts of compassion and connection. And still, we are few, so few. The sky above is an unchanging haze, the sun a dim sickle behind clouds of ash. Nights are long and cold, food is scarce, water dangerous, and disease is a constant threat. We are haunted by what we have lost, pressed down by what we cannot change, forced to move through a world that is both alive and dead. Every choice carries weight, every moment is survival, every thought is haunted by memories of those who are gone. And yet, we persist. Not because of hope, not because of plans, not because of any promise of tomorrow. We persist because the human spirit, stubborn and unyielding, refuses to vanish quietly. Every breath we take is a rebellion against silence. Every step we make is proof that life, even at the edge of extinction, clings to itself with ferocity. We are ghosts walking through the ruins of our species, bearing witness to everything that has been erased. And in that act alone, we are extraordinary. If anyone is listening, anywhere, know this. Life remains. Humanity, though broken, persists in the few of us who are left. We are the memory of billions, the flicker of what was, the fragile pulse in a dying world. The planet is scarred, civilization is gone, and yet we breathe, we move, we endure. That is the last signal, that is what remains. And as long as it continues, as long as even one of us survives, humanity has not fully vanished.